So lovely, Maxine. Thank you for sharing your heart with us today. I know it sounds like, oh God, what's she going to ask? But when I think about when we first met, um, and I'll never forget how kind you were to my, um, what's the word? Ignorance of how to approach the press. So we first met 13 years ago, 2006. And I remember ringing you up saying, my name's Lisa Clifford. Would you like to do a feature on me? Because I didn't know how to go about it. I mean, now that I've been schooled by you in your excellent workshops, you still didn't out me as being wrong, but having seen the way to do it, I now realise how unsophisticated that approach was. But your heart was just so lovely in that you just said, okay, well, tell me what you do. Whereas I'm sure most journalists would have said, I'm really busy, can you send me something in an email? So I just will always remember that first conversation that we had, and having known you now all these years later, you extend the same courtesy, respect, interest to everybody. And to me, that just shows me your values. So I wanted, because I have the privilege of getting to know you really well. I wanted other people to have the same luxury. So with that in mind, and we've just been speaking about what's happening in the world today and about how it's impacting people differently. What's been for you, what's been the biggest blessing out of all of this? Whilst we never want people to be suffering, but in us being locked down, what's been the biggest blessing for you?
I think probably a few things, but definitely having my family around me. It sounds really cliched, that, doesn't it? But I think being with your family a lot can be always not ideal. There's a reason why divorce rates rocket after Christmas, because everyone's cooped up together and people just don't go on, and there's all the tensions and everything. And so that can be a worry, I think. And obviously, if you're in a family and there's abuse or addictions like alcoholism and things going on, but added into that, there'll be a lot of people now really worried about finances. And so a family life may not be ideal just now for many, and we're talking about millions of families, in our country and across the world. So I feel massively blessed that I am escaping most of that anyway for now, touch wood. My husband's in a pretty steady job, he's still working. My daughter should have been doing her A-levels and they've just suddenly stopped, and so she's been a bit of a loss. What should she do? And she's not seeing her friends. She's an only child, and she she's used to a routine, and we should be going to university, so there's a lot of uncertainty. Even things like, they won't be getting together, they won't be having their prom, her dress is hanging in the closet, like thousands of other kids in that situation. That's kind of hard for her to adapt to. I'm a journalist and I'm used to writing stories, and this is the biggest story of our life. And this week I've literally just been laid off. I'm on furlough, so I'm told not to work. So that's could be really difficult thing to accept. But you just got to be. I'm really like an optimistic person. That is my personality. So I don't feel, poor me at all. I feel really lucky that I've got my family around me. We're healthy, we've got a roof over our heads, we've got food in the cupboard, we're not ill. There's loads of people in so much worse situations. And I feel, I want to help people where I can. I've set up a WhatsApp group for my street and we're identifying who needs help. That's really good. One of my best friends is shielding her whole family. They might be in isolation for months because her son has an immunosuppressant condition. And so she needs me to go and get her bits and bobs and doing that. And weirdly enough, you're more connected with everyone, even though you can't see them. I've never seen so many people, having conversations with friends overseas, my book club, which I haven't been to for months. We all had a hangout on Zoom the other day, and one of the girls is pregnant, so she's sort of self-isolated and she's on her own as well. And another girl had actually had coronavirus. So we didn't really talk about the book, which I hadn't even read, but we just talked about everything else. My mum's on her own up in Edinburgh. That's 200 miles from me. I won't be able to see her. Luckily, I have a twin sister in Edinburgh, and she is on her own as well. So I feel for them, because at least I've got my family here, and at the minute you can go out and we can go out and have walks. We've been cycling together, but actually we all do our own things. My husband goes cycling because he's super fast. Eva's been running, and I go for a walk. So we do it all on our own. But we come together and we have our meals together. And last night, I think for the first time in maybe 10 years or so, we all sat on the sofa together to watch a film, and that was my daughter's idea. Normally she wouldn't want to do that, so it's kind of a loveliness about it that I'm really just wanting to enjoy every day, because this is what it is and we have to make the most of it. And know some people are in a terrible situation with this and really scared, and there's a lot of terrible things going on, but not everyone is in that situation. So I think do what you can, be a good person, help other people. But try and, everyone's got to try and get through it as best they can. And it's all right, it's all right not to be okay, but I think it's all right to be okay. That's okay to say, I'm okay, and this is okay, and we actually can still have a good life like this. And I don't think people should be afraid or ashamed to say that. And if I can say one other thing, I think there's a lot of scary stuff in the media about people who have the disease and how bad it is, and all we can see is people on ventilators and people not getting ventilators, people dying. In fact, most of us will get this, and a lot of us will have it already, and we won't even have symptoms, or it'll be very, very mild. It's not something to be massively afraid of getting the disease. The fact is the government doesn't want us to get it because we don't want to pass it on to vulnerable people. So I think that's the thing to bear in mind, that if we do get it, we might be poorly for a bit, and the vast, vast majority of people will be absolutely fine with a few days in bed, drinking some water, taking some pain relief, paracetamol it is, rather than ibuprofen. And I think that's the thing to remember, that we'll be okay, most of us, and not something to be too massively scared of. And keep that in perspective, because it's really scary watching the news for a lot of people. A lot of people have got anxiety.
Yeah.
That was a lot to say.
Well, I mean, I think, God, yeah, we've said some great stuff. There's two things I want to go back to. One is, just how positively you've taken being laid off. Because if we were to think about being laid off under other circumstances, the way that you're responding, would it have been the same if it had been if it had been a year ago? Would you have felt so like you'd taken it in your stride?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is, you can't fight against reality, can you? Because that's in fact a stupid thing to do. I mean, the clever thing to do is say, right, this is a situation. It's not the end of the world. Being furloughed means I don't go to work, I don't work for the press, and I get 80% of my wages. I mean, that's not the end of the world, is it? I mean, that's actually very generous, I think, from the government, and it certainly will help me and my family. I think realistically, the question will be, will I get my job back at the end? And that's yet to be determined. There's a very high chance that I'll be made redundant, and that is a reality that I'll have to accept if that happens. But that doesn't mean it's the end of working life for me, because I'll do other stuff. What that'll be, I don't know. But there'll be so many people in that situation. I think the time now is to, if you are furloughed, maybe thinking about, this is time for you to think what you might do next, because it'll be a while. Don't think, people will be recruiting and everything just now. So not to panic, just use the time to think, update your skills, maybe look at your CV, what's lacking in your skill set, what might you want to do, might you want to retrain, why don't you look around, look at what's out there, and use that time that you've got now. Think cleverly, because at the end of the line, when we get back into whether we get properly laid off and made redundant, then when the economy is kick-starting, you want to get in there and think, what do I want to do next? And most people won't have an opportunity in their life just to take a step back and sit for a few weeks and think, what do I want to do? Well, this is the time to do it. So it
I,
could be an opportunity for a lot of people.
I love that sentence. There's no point fighting reality, and in this period we are. Um, there are some people that will be wanting things to go back to the way that they were because that's familiar, and then they knew the outcomes they would get, they knew how that looked. And then there are some people I'm speaking to that are kind of, and I'm of this camp as well, where, oh, I wonder when we come through the other side, what the other side looks like and what are the possibilities. Because I really feel like this period is where life is doing what we don't know is good for us. You've just described, going for walks, cycling, running, sitting on the sofa and watching the telly together, having time together, having meals together. Whereas before now, your family were probably all very busy contributing to your own individual lives and coming together for air. And now it just feels like it's really connecting us in a way that we hadn't probably experienced for a long time.
I think it's true. I think there'll be loads of really good things that will come out of this. It's absolutely terrible what is happening. And I hope when you do the edit for this, you don't take out all these things that I'm saying. This is really terrible for a lot of people. I don't want to come out thinking I'm all right now, because I'm aware that it's really, really bad for so many people. But it is reality that this is something that we're in, this pandemic, and it's massively going to change everything. Life will never be the same. The world will never be the same. It just can't be. We're not going to go back to how things were. We don't know what the future is going to look like, but it's not going to look like how it was a few months ago for sure. We've realised a lot of things, haven't we? We don't need to be commuting to work. No one needs to be doing 4 hours commute into the office every day and never seeing their children and being stressed out their heads. We don't need tons and tons of money. We don't need stuff. What do we need? We need a roof over our heads. We need food. We need shelter. We need warmth. And we need company. More than anything now, we've realised we need company, don't we? That's why all these Zoom things are going on. We want to see people, we want those connections. Thank heavens for social media, because we'd all be much, much worse off and much less happy and much less able to cope, I think, if we couldn't still connect as human beings and see each other. I think we're seeing each other so much better than a telephone, isn't it? That's why I'm really glad my mum, who's 75 up in Edinburgh, has got an iPad, and we taught her how to do Messenger on the phone. So we do video calls. She's on WhatsApp, so she can hook up with all of us, the granddaughter and my sister, and we can all have a 4-way chat, which is great for her. Just realised there's an app as well called Board Game Arena.
All right.
And we all play the same board game remotely. So there's tons of things like that that are all coming out. Netflix party where you can watch film together and chat. Lots of ways for us to connect. And I think that is going to see us through. And we're going to really appreciate our friendships more, I think, when we come through this. But I think there's a massive impact on the environment already. No planes flying, no trains, no cars. Pollution is coming down. And we're really asking ourselves, do we need to be in our cars? Do we need to be taking these planes? I just don't think we will be getting back to that, because we're thinking again. The environment's actually said there's this crisis, the planet is just going to be over in I don't know how many years. But really, we can sit back and think, well, it's not going to affect us, is it? But now, this pandemic is really affecting us, and we're having to act now because of that. But the impact long term will be a good thing, I think, for the planet. And I think the ways that we work will change massively. I think there'll be much more remote working, flexibility. Employers can see that it can work and they can trust their staff to do it. So I think a lot of things will change.
What have you noticed in terms of spirit, in terms of people's open-heartedness around this? Because one of the things you said earlier was, we're not seeing each other, yet we're all closer. And what's that about for you?
That's a good question. I think kindness. I think that is. I have a very, very good friend of mine who's shielding with her family, and she is one of the kindest people ever. She is big in the local church. She would do anything to help anyone. She runs the homeless kitchen in York on a Wednesday night. And so when she decided she had to go into isolation, to protect her son who was vulnerable, it meant that she would have to cut off the outside world. Her husband, and she's got 3 children, so all of them would be like no outside contact at all. But she was really worried about giving up the kitchen, the homeless kitchen. I said to her, Helen, this is the time. You have helped everyone. That has been your thing. It's a time now for you not to feel guilty, to let other people help you. And I think you've got to be able to accept help as much as you can give it. And I think that helped her that I said that to her, because she was feeling really bad that she couldn't now be out helping people. But that's what good people do, isn't it? We help each other. Mm-hmm. And so she's helped me loads, and particularly recently. I've not been well on and off for about a year, had loads of health issues. She's really helped me, and I'm better now, and I'm really happy to help her, and I can get around and about and walking again and stuff, and I can help people. So,
and I think that permission, you're so right when you said it really helped her to hear what you said, because being given permission to just be is so underestimated. It's so underrated, perhaps, where somebody says, stay in, relax, focus on your family, makes that other person feel like, okay. Because what they leave outside the door then is all that, I should be helping other people, there are people worse off than me. There's all that shoulding, the weight of the shoulding, that when you give somebody permission to just be, they then remove the restriction of all that shoulding that they should be doing, and allow them just to settle into it. It's massive, Maxine, and so underrated. So it's under, what's the word? What's underrated? But
yeah, and I have a friend in Paris, and a really good friend, and she lives in a small apartment with her husband and 2 teenage children. And of course, they went into lockdown the week before us. So I was speaking to her about what was that like. And she's a journalist. So I said to her, could you write something for me? So she wrote me this great piece that we ran in the press on Tuesday, which was when we went into lockdown. So it was really timely, because they're kind of just a week ahead of what's going on and what's going on in this country. But yeah, she's brilliant, because she's just so common sense. And I mean, I loved it in Paris. When they went into lockdown, you had to print out a form. If you wanted to go out the house, you had 4 things you could do. One was to go and get some shopping, walk a dog, do some exercise. So she said the first thing that she sent her daughter out for was to get some buns from the baker's. I just thought that was just so her, we're going to have tea and we're going to have some buns. And then they were wishing that they had a dog so they could get out a bit more. But yeah, I think it'll be more challenging to come if we all end up in total lockdown where we can't even go out for a walk. That might happen soon.
Yeah. Do you find that your journalistic mind, I mean, there's a lot that you could cover and write about. How are you exercising? Because I always imagine the things, our passions, need to be exercised. If not, it's a bit like caging an animal, or having a dog and it needing a walk, but you're not walking it. And so, how are you exercising your?
Well, no, you're right. That's tricky. So when I thought, I might get furloughed, I realised that this is the biggest story ever, the biggest story of our lives. And I'm a journalist, and I'm being basically put on the set, it's like probably being a football player, and you watch your team out playing and you're sitting on the benches at being bench. And some of the really great footballers of time have been on the benches, haven't they? Not saying I'm the best journalist ever, but I'm a really experienced journalist. So I think, don't they need my skills? I'm a great storyteller. I've got great contacts. So many stories and people I want to interview. So I sort of thought, I will miss that. And I'm always thinking, and I'm always sending them stories. If I see something, I'm send it to the news desk. Because I only work part-time, so on my days off, I'd come across things and go, this is a good story. Obviously, I couldn't write all the stories, but I'd quite often give stories. And so I suppose I can still do that. I can still email them stories or give them tip-offs, but I can't write them. But then I thought, I still want to write. So I've actually started writing like a blog, and it's like an account of the lockdown and the whole crisis, and it's like a day by day thing. And I've just started writing it, and I'm finding that really satisfying. So I'm doing that, and I'm not sure whether I'll publish it because as a journalist, I just think it'll be really useful to have an account, as many accounts as possible of people living through this. Because as a journalist, when we write about the past, we rely on sources. And I think, I'm thinking 50 years' time, 100 years' time, what I write now might be really interesting to a journalist about what life was like in York for a family, what it was like to be furloughed, what was it like living with a teenage daughter who wasn't doing her A-levels, just my little life and what it's about. And there'll be loads of people writing stuff like that. But that's our first draft of history. So I think it's important as a and I was a historian, that was my thing when I was younger. I'm really interested in those personal accounts. And I think whether or not anyone reads them now, it doesn't really matter to me. I just want to do it. So I'm kind of doing two things. I'm writing little bits about the day, and then I'm having an item just with the key facts of the day, like what the death numbers were, what were the key developments. So there's two things going on, the kind of personal and then the bigger kind of picture.
Yeah.
And I'm just doing that really for my own purpose. I might publish it, I might not. But the thing I was thinking about this morning when I was lying in bed was, because one of my friends said, why don't you interview people, involved or get people's stories? And I'm just all about the story. I love stories. I love speaking to people. And I think I might do that. So I'm not sure whether to do like this, like a Zoom interview with people, or whether to do like a podcast type thing with interviews of people maybe who've had the virus, who are working on the front line, but just to share stories again and put those out there. And I might put them on my What's the Story page. And so I'm just thinking, I am just a creative person, and I'll find a way and I'll find an outlet for it, because just the way I am. I've been writing stories in magazines since I was primary school, so I'm not going to stop now. No.
And for you, it's not just about the written word. Then it's about communicating the story out to other people. It's the outcome of people learning or understanding. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because my job is I'm a features writer, which means I like to really spend time with someone and get to know their story. I like to know what makes them tick. I'm really, really nosy. I want to know everything about someone. And normally you do an interview and you write a story about that, and you bring that your skill is, the challenge is to bring that person's story to life in the page, to the words. But obviously if you do an interview and record it or do an audio one, you're still telling someone's story. So I think I'll probably do that rather than write interviews up, because that's very much what I would be doing at the press. And I'm not doing that. And I don't think I'm supposed to be doing that. But I think I could do something different, because I think there's still stories out there that we want to be telling. And again, I just think it's important. I think it's important that we document, what real life is like now, because we're living through something no one's ever experienced for 100 years. We have all this technology to do it. The Spanish flu was 100 years ago. And we've just not, and then we've had the plague. And it's a modern plague, isn't it? It's just unbelievable. When you saw what happened in China in January, I remember watching the news, everyone in lockdown, no one going out, the economy just shut. I remember saying, that's all right for China. We'd never be able to do that in a million years in the West. No way. No one would allow it. The government would just, are you getting something on your screen there? I got something on my screen.
Oh, no.
So when we were looking back to China, we were seeing that everyone was in lockdown. I remember thinking, no way. We'd never allow that here. That would never happen. The West would never have that. And yet, see how quickly we've done the same thing. So
I think I love the idea of you taking your journalistic skill into video form, into this format, because you have a way, Maxine, of asking questions that put people at ease, where they can step into their vulnerability and truth and be safe with it and share from the heart, so that people get a really broad and deep understanding of what it's like for that person to be in the situation they're in, or to whatever experiences they're going through, and I would personally love to see that.
No,
I
thank you.
think,
I think as a journalist, particularly as a features writer, what you have to do there is you have to get sort of the trust of the person. You have to spend time with them. You're talking to them, and really, but you have to listen. And what you want is you really want the person to share their experience, because as a writer, I have to be able to imagine everything about that person before I can write their story. I have to know everything. I'll interview someone for a long time and I'll have loads and loads of notes, and my colleague Steve will be saying he'll have a whole notepad of notes. But obviously we edit what we say, because you have to know so much just to absorb that person before you write about them. And I used to write for a women's magazine called That's Life. And that was really good training, because they would send you somewhere right across. It was in London, but you went all over the country and spend the whole day. And you spend a whole day interviewing someone. You get everything. They want to know every single bit about this person's life, and then you come back and you'd only have to write 1,000 words, which isn't a lot. It's about 4 pages of A4. And the editor would look at it and she'd go, "What happened here? What happened here? What happened here?" And then you'd write it all in, and it was only 2,000 words. And then she would go, "What happened here? What?" And you put it all in. It was almost like she didn't trust you, that you hadn't asked all the questions. But chances are, when it got edited back, she took all the other stuff out. It was the story you gave her. But she, as our journalist, was wanting to know the same. She probably had to get into my head to get into the person's. And that's what it's about. You have to
create the context.
Experiences. But I think it's easier on video, because I can see what you look like and all your expressions and the kind of person you are, and if you're relaxed, if you're, but as a writer, you have to convey that somehow.
Yes. What do you hope? No, actually, what is it that you've learned during? I mean, we've only been a week. Well, it was a week. It was last Monday, wasn't it? 8 o'clock.
It's not even a week. It's just days. Feels longer. It has been longer for me, because I had been self-isolating because I'd had a cough and a sore throat. So I had sort of been, a bit ahead of everyone. Yeah.
What have you learned about yourself that you're glad you know now as a result of all that's happening, and how you've adapted to it?
That I'm comfortable at home, I think is a massive relief, because I'm not someone that likes to be at home. I don't like being in. I'm really busy person. I like to. My life's been like getting up, going to work Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to the office, sort of 9:30 till 6. I'm getting in 6:30. Monday, Tuesday was before I had a foot injury, but before then I was like up playing tennis, because I'm a tennis player, and seeing my friends playing tennis, doing the shopping, doing the chores, running my workshops, just on the go. On an evening, playing tennis, going to the gym, going to Pilates, seeing friends. I didn't really like being at home. I don't like it. And I was a bit worried about that. And to be honest, on the very first day, on the Monday of this week, which was just before the lockdown, and my husband was sent home from the university, so we're all in, my daughter's in, and I'm in, and I didn't like it. And I had my office set up in the dining room, and I was like, "Oh, I'm not going to." And it's kind of a thoroughfare in the house between all the rooms, and it's not good to have your work there, And I was just like getting a bit stressed in my head about it. And my husband had taken over the front room, which was really our retreat room, where there's nothing ever in there. We can just sit and watch the telly, and it was always just a nice space. And suddenly it's got all his stuff in there and his computers, and I'm like, "Oh, there's nowhere to go." It was a horrible sort of feeling. And we've got one very small spare room, and I was thinking, should we chuck out all the furniture? But where would we put it? And could I get a desk, and could I make that into an office? And before I went to bed that night, Monday night, I stood looking in the room, and I thought, if I got rid of that bit of furniture, I could get a little desk in. And the next day, I set all that up, and I had a little office where I'm in now. Ironically, that day I got furloughed. But I have used this office a lot, because it's my little space. It's tidy. There's no one other stuff in there. And I think that's maybe a bit of a luxury, because not everyone can have that. But either if it's a little bit of your bedroom that you can get, you can just keep for you, I think everyone needs in this a little bit of space for them. I certainly do. So that's helped me kind of just be at home, because I've got a little den that I can retreat into.
But I think when you say, because I just want to, because when you say I didn't like being at home, is it that, or is it I liked being on the go a lot and I didn't like wasting what seems like wasting time doing nothing?
Yeah, I'm not very good.
Well,
I'm
none
not
of it is
very,
beautiful.
I'm not very good at. I'm never someone that's doing nothing.
Mm.
Um,
Nothing bit rather than not liking home.
yeah, I think I don't like being. I didn't like being at home because at home to me was. I'm not someone just sit and put my feet up. I will do in an evening, say come 9 o'clock. I don't feel guilty about watching TV, but I wouldn't be like on my day off on like a Monday or a Tuesday afternoon. I'll just watch a bit of Netflix. No,
Yeah.
I would never ever do that. So I would be like, it's because I think I've got washing to do. Oh, I think when you're at home, you can always think, oh, the bathroom needs cleaning, or I could tidy that cupboard, or that kitchen is really filthy. I know I could just have a real gut of it, but I just don't like that because I feel if I'm at home and I've got time on my hands, I'd have to be doing that or another washing or
I
putting
get
the
you.
laundry. And it's that kind of domestic thing I don't like, I think,
Yeah,
more than anything.
I get
There's
you.
nothing wrong with my house and being in the house. But I think now that I've got more time, I'm not stressing about all that because I've got all the time in the world to do the laundry. And if I want to clean the kitchen, I can. So I
Yeah.
think that's maybe
Yeah.
okay.
Um, what do you hope when we're well, actually, I want to go back to something that you said, and we'll get to this question that I keep letting go of. But about not feeling guilty about enjoying this time. And so I think there's almost a feeling and energy of people feeling guilty for, yeah, enjoying this period. What can you say that will help people let go of the guilt um, or the obligation to not be a martyr, but to well, I guess not enjoy it. I'm not explaining it very well, but I do
No,
know
I
it's like when
understand.
you're sick, isn't it? Where you feel like if you
Yeah.
if you've ever not felt great and rang into work because you don't want to pass it on, but actually you feel okay. But when you're at home, you just think, oh no, I need to go. I need to not be enjoying myself. I need to not be putting the TV on. I need to not be doing that. But there's all this period has almost made us. Some people feel I need not to be.
Yeah, I agree. Um, I think we've got to be mindful that for a lot of people, this is not a great time. There's a lot of worries about the future, about the jobs, about their health.
Yeah,
Um, and I really want you to keep that in the video that,
yeah,
it's really important that because I saw a post on Facebook the other day from this lady and she's not well. And she's like, she said, I'm sick of seeing all these people saying this is great opportunity for me to do all this, you know, learn Spanish or learn how to cook or for some people this is really serious. Of course it is. Of course it is. But what do you want the other people to do? There's going to be lots of people that are just biding their time or they're at home with children and they'll never be in that situation again. This is for many families. This might be an opportunity for them, like to really spend quality time with maybe little children that they never normally get. I think it's really difficult if you're expected to work full time and look after your children. And I think employers are going to have to be realistic about that. I think it's wrong for them to think that parents can do a full time job to their best capability, to the full expectation, and look after small children. That's not fair. That's not right. But I think at the same time, we're never hopefully going to get this time again. And if you are able and you're in a situation where I would say, don't stress about the stuff you don't have to stress about. We will all have stresses in this, and everyone's got different things. Oh, try and if there are, don't stress about the stuff you don't need to. If you can get a perspective on that, I think that'll help. And yeah, feel okay about doing fun stuff that you can. Get out while you can. Play with your children, play with your friends, learn something new, my daughter's teaching me guitar, my first guitar lesson yesterday, which was really fun. And she's fantastic. She's really patient, and she was such a good teacher. I really enjoyed it. Well, my fingers are really hurting, so just half an hour at a time.
I guess it's
about just being, stress about the stuff you need to, and try and not stress about the stuff that you don't need to.
Yeah, because it's not a punishment. I think that's what my mouth was trying to get out is we may treat this like a punishment, whereas in fact, and that's just a perspective as well. It's just a perspective. Whereas in fact, we will hopefully never have enforced lockdown again. And I don't want to get to the end of it and think, oh, I wish I'd used my time better. I wish, one of the things we're going to do later on today is me and my other half is work out all the things that we want to make sure we do in our businesses, but also what do we want to do with each other, and not just become complacent about both. And so to be like really conscious of what will I really enjoy, what fun do we want. One of the things he said was, let's watch loads of comedies, let's do that, let's have a laugh. And but it is also a time for, I guess, well, if I could start with a blank sheet of paper, which you might be in that position in a few weeks, a few months, or a year, if I could start with a blank piece of paper, what would I love to do? Not just what can I do to make money so I can keep a roof over my head, but what would I love to do? And I think that this period is calling for us to connect with our hearts, which is what you said right at the beginning, which was in a funny sort of way, we're more connected than ever, even though we're not seeing each other. And for me, that's the spirit of the heart, really. And your street in particular, listening to what you were saying before we hit record, about your street spirit is tangible and so supportive, and everybody feeling so safe. It's just
I think that's happening across the country. I'm not unusual. I mean, I won't be unusual. There'll be lots of people like me, like a mum at home with a teenage kid who's not doing their exams, who's maybe been laid off, or who's maybe having to work. And I think that'd be much harder if I were having to work and had children to look after. So I'm very, very fortunate in many ways. I don't have those stresses. That is stressful. So, I mean, it's easy for me to sit here and say, I'm not telling people to try and enjoy it. I'm trying to say that if you have an opportunity to look at, try and get the most out of it as you can. And if you're able to, that might be helping other people. There's been so many people volunteering, which we need, and we might need more of. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if this rolled on for a long time, that what's to say the government wouldn't say if you're being on furlough, then you have to report for duty to do volunteering or something. That would seem fair to me.
Well, absolutely. If you're on furlough and the government are paying the 80% and we're not working, then that would seem, even if it's an hour a day, a massive contribution to our community. And whether it's just the UK community or we extend it further, that's a great idea.
I mean, the simple things like, the farmers don't have people to go and pick their crops. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they just, I don't know whether they do it volunteer-wise, but they might say, if you are on furlough, then you have to do a job that for the good of society, if you're able. If you're not ill or got disability or something like that. So, I think we don't know. The government can do anything. They're taking extreme powers, and we don't know what lies ahead. And as a journalist, that's really interesting and really exciting. And that's partly why I want to record things in this blog writing, because it's all new. Every day is like incredible stuff happening.
And so my final question is, in all of who you are as the fabulous Maxine, the mum, the wife, the daughter, the sister, the journalist, the neighbour, the friend, what impact do you want to have made by the time you tipple off this mortal planet?
Oh.
I say tipple off with a drambuie.
Hopefully not through COVID-19.
Yeah, not that. In 100 years' time, Maxine.
Oh, that's a really good question. That's a hard question. I would like people to think good things about me. I'm not perfect at all. I'm like everyone. Everyone. No one's perfect. Let's face it. Like people think, oh, they're a good friend, loyal, good mum,
Yeah.
and a good listener. I think I'm a good listener.
Yeah.
I think I'm a good listener. I think you have to be a good listener to be a journalist. Yeah, I think I don't suffer fools and don't like fake things. I like genuine people. I'm not very good with. I normally can feel it or spot it if someone's not genuine, and I find that difficult because I think I'm very open and very genuine person.
Mm.
I do. I'm a bit don't hold back, but
I love that.
think that's the kind of people that I like. So just yeah, I don't know, nothing grand, not looking for awards or be the best writer ever or anything like that, but just that, yeah, helping people. I think what's nice as a journalist and also in the business that I do, which I didn't realize with the business when I set it up, it's sort of helping people. I mean, journalism is about getting people's stories out there. Sometimes it's entertaining, sometimes it's fun, but sometimes it's, sharing things that help other people. When you read a story and you identify and think, oh, I've been through that, or oh, that'll really help me. That's great. I love that. And I think with the business that I do, when I'm training businesses how to do their own PR, that's really helping small businesses help them with their business, and I get great response to that. So that's really satisfying. And I didn't think that would be something that would happen when I did that, but stop be helping them. But it's actually really nice.
The two
So
things I just
yeah.
want to say about that. One is when I see that you do and the impact that you make, because you've just made yourself you've just been very modest there, which you are, is you give businesses a voice. You are the voice. You give businesses a voice; they can be seen and be heard, and so they get to have some space out in the world, so that the great things that they do and the missions that they're on and the visions that they have and the contributions they make actually is seen in the world. So I see that you do that brilliantly. I've been on the receiving end of that, Maxine. That without a feature you did on me 2006, and I just moved to York. You put me and my business in the spotlight. I mean, it was for me not to cock it up, but you put my business in a spotlight where I was seen, so people could find me, so the right people could find me, and that is so invaluable. Where you give businesses, people, the light, so they can be seen, and then the right people can find them.
But it's interesting. We talked about authenticity and about how I like people to be authentic and I like to be straight with people. But I think that's something that businesses can learn, because I think for PR purposes, you've got to be genuine, you've got to be authentic, you've got to have a real story, no spin, no, not like a commercial advert thing, but some story from the heart about what you're about, something great that you're doing. And as a journalist, that's what we're tuning in on. We're tuning on those genuine stories that we want to share with our readers. That's something I always tell people. Your story has to be genuine. It has to be authentic. You have to find that voice. You have to find that story that really matters to other people. So other people will say, so what? You want people to go, wow, that's really interesting. I want to tell someone else that really matters. That's the kind of message that you want to get there. So I think it's all about being authentic.
I remember a meeting with a couple of years ago, and we met up, and I wanted to talk to you about my 21-day empowerment program. And all the way through, you're thinking, what's the story here? This is something that Lisa wants to sell. Yes, I get it that people will benefit, but what's the story? Our readers deserve a story here, not to be sold to. And I loved your discipline to.
What was it, Lisa? And so I came to you and you had a story about a book, 21 Days of Empowerment Plan you were selling. I was like, what was the story I eventually wrote? Can you remember what it was?
About firewalking.
Went firewalking. Now that was the story.
Yeah. You were amazing though. Honestly, you were so amazing, because to fully participate and to fully be able to walk on fire, You have to fully participate in the workshop beforehand. You were doing a dual role. You were writing and listening to people, and everybody loved having you there. Nobody held back because you were there. They trusted that you would write it in the context it was said. But not only that, then you broke an arrow in your throat. I mean, it was part of the workshop.
That
Then
was scary.
you walked on fire whilst being in the role of journalist and whilst being Maxine Gordon. I mean, that's in our world, that's quite incredible to do. But the thing I wanted to, so you got a story out. There was nothing to do with the 21-day empowerment.
There's always a story. I mean, I think that's the thing, is finding the right story, not selling something, finding it. Because the fact that you were doing a fire walking evening, well, that's really interesting. You know, people are going to be so interested in that. So I was like, no, I'm definitely doing a story on that.
Lisa thinks the story is this. I'm telling her it's that. And you're right. You're right. But the thing about your What's the Story workshops and courses, there's a little saying, isn't there? Give a man a fish, he'll feed his family for a night. Teach him how to fish, and he'll feed his family for a lifetime. And your workshops are exactly that metaphor. You know, people can come to you and submit a press release. You can put it in the paper, but that relies on you. When you teach them how to write the press release properly, then they're able to be self-sufficient without paying an expensive PR person or employ a PR person to do it, or even have their PR person who has to do it in the right way. You teach people how to be self-sufficient so that they can be really resourceful and it not always be really expensive to be seen and heard. Yeah. And having been on your course, you deliver it in a really fun, interactive, easy way that makes the mind easy to learn what you're sharing. So I love your teaching style, and I hope you get to do so much more in person and online, because I think the world, we need it. We need it so that people are not ringing up and saying, hello, my name's Lisa Clifford, do you want to do a feature on me? But it did lead to a beautiful relationship that developed over 13 years, and I'm so grateful for it. So thank you for sharing. I think I've got no idea. Yeah, we've been talking for about an hour. None of it's getting edited out, not even my ums and ahs and not finding the right words. I'm going to keep it all in. Even you telling me not to edit stuff out and keeping that in, because I'm sure people want to know how passionate you are about keeping stuff in and keeping the truth in.
Yeah, well, it's interesting for me to be interviewed as a journalist, because I'm really aware, you know, that you'll say something and then it gets taken out of context. The last thing I want to be is, I mean, I probably wouldn't do an interview with anyone because, you know, I trust myself to be aware of like what, I'd never stitch someone up or make them sound like, you know, something they didn't say. I would rather die than do that. But you know, that does happen to people. So and that is not something that I've ever done and would ever do. So I'm just conscious of, that could sound terrible out of context. So
yeah. It's all staying in, exactly as it is, including you bossing me around. It's all staying in. And actually, Maxine, just going back on that, I have told you the most vulnerable things about my life, and you have never, and it would make for good reading. It's been a bit boastful, isn't it? But and you have never said to me, can we just put that bit in, Lisa? You've always been so sensitive to, is putting that bit in going to make a difference to the outcome? Probably not. So we won't compromise, Lisa, in any way. And so well, thank you, my lovely. After this 1 hour, I now need to visit the ladies' room because my 2 cups of coffee.
Well, I think I might go and have my next guitar lesson.
Yes, do that, darling. I'll let you know when it's live. And thank you so much. I have loved chatting to you.
All right, take care then.
Bye, love.
Bye.